Hello everyone. Let's wait for another minute to start the live. Hello everyone. I'm Neeta Shankar. I'm a wedding and lifestyle photographer from Bangalore, and today I'm going to be talking about lighting on a budget. So I see some people have already logged in. Hi Mohammed, hi Supriyo. Let's Hi Mayank. Good to see you all here. So today's topic is because I've been receiving a lot of questions on my Instagram and Facebook where people ask me about uh, what kind of lighting equipment they can buy on a budget, and if people are new into photography, like what are the equipments that are must-haves and something that won't cost them a bomb. So we've been I've been meaning to do this like a short tutorial for a long time now, and I talk about few of the equipment and accessories that you can invest in that will save you some money and ensure that you can still experiment and get different amazing results with your lighting equipment. So today we're going to be talking all about lighting on a budget. So if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to drop a comment, and I'll get to the questions once I'm done with the presentation. So today I'll be talking about various accessories that I use, various small hacks that I've used to ensure that the lighting equipment budget does not cross a certain limit. And I understand that photography is a very, very expensive hobby. If you are a professional, it's different. You're at least earning from it. But there are a lot of hobbyist photographers, students who who are trying to learn photography and experiment with lighting, and it is extremely important for them to figure out lighting that is not too expensive, uh, because as we all know, photography can be a really expensive hobby. The camera equipment, the accessories, the lighting equipment, the modifiers, it's all quite expensive. And to build your own kit, there are so many options, and to build your own kit, it can get confusing. You don't know what to invest in, what sort of equipment will last you long, what sort of equipment can work as workarounds for more expensive options. So these are the questions that I would like to answer today. So let's get started. Let me bring up my slides. One second. Okay, great. So let's get started. So before we proceed, just a little bit about me. I have a company called Neeta Shankar Photography Private Limited. I run this company with my husband. So we both are into wedding photography and cinematography. So we've been doing wedding photography since 2012. So in the end of 2012 is when I switched from my corporate career and became a photographer, a full-time photographer. My husband joined me more recently, about like 3 to 4 years ago, and he's been doing photography and cinematography with me as well. So we have a small team in Bangalore. So we have shot more than like 250, 300 weddings by now. I've honestly lost count. So yeah, so apart from weddings, we also shoot portraits and lifestyle shoots. We also do a lot of product shoots in our studio. We conduct a lot of workshops. So yeah, that's what we do as photographers. I'm one of the brand ambassadors for Godox India. I'm also a Nikon expertive, and I am also a mentor for other brands like Vanguard, Moza, and Data Color Spider. Okay, so let's go ahead. So these are the links to my website, my YouTube channel, my Instagram handle, and Facebook. My Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm also, I also keep posting a lot of videos and tutorials and reviews and everything on my YouTube channel. So do subscribe and follow on these channels and stay in touch so that in case you have any questions, you can reach out to me on one of these channels. Okay, so today we'll be talking mostly about all the budget lighting equipment options from Godox. So I'll be talking about continuous lights, I'll be talking about speed lights, flashes, pocket strobes. I'll also be talking about powered strobes for those of you who want to start off a studio or who are mostly going to be shooting in a studio. And we'll also be discussing about various accessories and modifiers. So to get started, first of all, what are the things that you need to look for when you're picking up a flash? I would say, one of the first things that you need to, invest in uh, is probably a speed light, a non-camera flash that can go both on camera as well as off camera. So to start off with, let me discuss some of the points that you need to consider when you are investing in a speed light. So I use a V1, which is not not the most inexpensive option, but I also use the V862, the V862. So V860 is, I think, a more budget-friendly flash when compared to V1. There are even more budget-friendly options like the TD585, TD600, TD685. So I would recommend maybe like a TD685 for those who don't who don't mind using AA battery powered flashes, because one of the major differences between say TD685 or TD600 to V860 is that V860 has a lithium ion flash, so a lithium ion battery, so it lasts a lot longer when on shoots. Say, especially because I'm a wedding photographer, for me these things matter. I don't want to be in the middle of a shoot, I don't want to be like changing 4 AA batteries into my flash. So since these lithium ion batteries last like an entire day, for me it works very well. But having said that, if you are not a wedding photographer, if you're going to be mostly shooting portraits or where you have a lot of time on your hands, where you're not really in a rushed environment, I would suggest maybe pick up a TD685 or a TD585 according to your budget. So one of the major differences, other than the flash type, one of the other major differences between these flashes is the recycle time. V862 has a recycle time of zero point 0.1 to like 1.5 seconds on full power. But say a flash which is, not, on a budget range like the TD685 or the TD585, TD600, I think TD600 is around like 5,000 range. The flash is around 5,000 range. And if you're picking up this TD585, uh, one of the major differences you will notice is in the recycle time. There, the recycle time goes up to like 2.5 seconds. So it may take a little while to recycle. Let me just quickly explain what is recycle time. Now, when you're taking pictures on a burst mode, when the flash fires, the time it takes to fire the next flash, that is, every time the flash fires, it has to recycle and then fire the next burst of flash. So when you do this, I mean, if let's say you're shooting a wedding, or if you're shooting some high speed action, like you're shooting some dancers, or you're shooting some sports, and you want the flash to be constantly firing, you don't want to like the flash to take 1.5 seconds or 2.5 seconds, I mean longer recycle times, then you should consider getting a flash with a better recycle time. And so this is what I was talking about. Like, for example, when I shoot sangeet, especially because the people are moving around on the dance floor, people are like moving around and their expressions are changing, the light is changing. So these during these times I want to be like a little more quick. This is probably one of the few times that I shoot on burst, and I try to get as many pictures as possible, so that I get the best expression during the dance floor uh, moments. So during such time, I want my flash to recycle fast. I don't want it to take like 2.5 seconds or 2.6 seconds of recycle time. So in such scenarios, shorter the recycle time, the better the flash is going to be for me. But let's say you're shooting portraits where you may not shoot in burst mode at all. So in such scenarios, recycle times may not matter much. So other than the recycle time, always ensure that the flashes are, all have wireless triggering. That is, the same flash can be used on camera or off camera. Ensure that you can use it off camera. That is, good thing about Godox flashes is almost, I mean, all of their flashes are have the same wireless 2.4 gigahertz wireless radio transmission. So they have the receiver built into the flash, and all you need is like a transmitter like this to trigger your flashes. And apart from that, you also need high speed sync. So you should also ensure that your flashes work with high speed sync. High speed sync is when you're shooting in like broad daylight and you need to use higher shutter speeds to capture a shallow depth of field, to ensure you can still get a shallow depth of field and use a flash at the same time. Otherwise, if you don't have high speed syncs, you may have to increase your f number, which will lead to a very narrow depth of field, and it'll get the background and everything else also into focus. And sometimes when you're shooting portraits like the one on the screen, you may not want to capture the background. You may want the background to be blurred out in camera. So in such scenarios, you may have to use high speed sync, because when there is so much of available light and you need to cut down the light that is entering your camera to allow your flash light to light your subjects, when you need to underexpose your scene, there are only two ways of doing that. Either you increase your f number and stop down your aperture, or you increase your shutter speed, shoot at a very fast shutter speed to ensure lesser light enters your camera. So in such scenarios, like, I mean, like I said before, there are, when you're shooting portraits, you may not want to stop down your aperture. You may want to shoot really wide open to get shallow depth of field. So in such scenarios, you would definitely need high speed sync. So all of these flashes have high speed sync enabled up to 1/8000th of a second. So that's a good thing. So these are the three things that I would consider when picking up a flash. So that's all about like how you would uh, use speed lights during your shoots. So like I said, today we'll be talking about speed lights, we'll be talking about constant lights, I'll be talking about pocket strobes, I'll be talking about all the modifiers that you can use, and the budget friendly options among these. Like I said, I use V1, but you don't always need a V1. You can even make do with a V860 or a TT685. There is like one very handy trick that I'm going to show later. How you can ensure, even though you don't have a round head, you can still use the round head modifiers that I'll be talking about. So we'll come to that. So meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about constant lights. One of the most inexpensive option when it comes to constant lights is, let me show you that. Yeah, one of the most inexpensive options when it comes to constant lights is probably a ring light from Godox. Today I was checking out the options available, and although I don't own a ring light, I do shoot with ring light sometimes. When the makeup artist carries them to the shoots, and I do use the ring light once in a while. And I noticed that Godox ring lights start from like 2000 onwards, which is a really really budget friendly option. So at 2000 rupees, you get something like a 12-inch ring light. Probably a better option would be to get something like an 18-inch ring light, which I think I read it at around like 3.5 to 4K, which is a really, really budget friendly option for people who want constant lights. Say if you're vlogging, if you're creating YouTube videos, if you're creating reels for Instagram, or you're just taking some beauty portraits, ring light will really come in handy. And the other budget friendly light that I use is the uh, 308, I think it's the 308C LED light. So this is a bicolored LED light, can go from warm to cool, and it's pretty handy because if you need to, you can even put it on the hot shoe of your camera, so it can mount onto your camera if you need to. If you don't have an assistant to hold, or if you don't have a stand, you can always use it as a quick option. Although I don't use it that way, I usually put it on a stand or have someone hold the light. So that's one of the options. Other than that, I think anyone who wants to get into, I mean, anyone who wants to invest in LED lights, I think the LC500 is a really really good option. And this is a light I use quite often. This is a light I use quite often in wedding shoots, especially when we are in a hurry and we don't have the time to set up the flashes, or when the bride is being rushed out. So the LED light is a really quick way to just get your shots. And because it has the barn doors, it is easy to control the spread of the light, and uh, it's quite fun to use. So I think LC500 has always been one of my favorites. And now you also have the LC500R, which is like the RGB version of the light, and you can even get colored lights using that. So I think that's a really good option to consider. And okay, so next, to talk about pocket strobes. I've always been saying that uh, the 8200 is probably one of my favorite pocket strobes. And of course, now the 8300 has also come in, and I really like that as well. I already talked about 8300 in detail in one of the previous live sessions, which you can find on my YouTube channel. You can check out my YouTube channel, search for Neeta Shankar Photography on YouTube, and you'll be able to find the 8300 Pro, what I think about 8300 Pro and how I use it, and all the modifiers I use with it. So do have a look at that. Today I'll be mostly talking about 8200 because it's more budget friendly. So this is the 8200. It comes with multiple head options, like there is the flash head, which is currently on. It comes off and you can mount a bulb head, or you can mount a round head on it, and you can change the kind of light that you get. So one of my favorite pocket strobe is 8200, because mainly because of its size, and also because it's so versatile. And there are a lot of small modifiers that you get for these flashes, I mean for this strobe. And not a lot of people are actually aware of these modifiers. These modifiers can be used, like there is this barn door uh, that I have. There are these gels, there's this barn door, there are grids. So all these modifiers can actually be attached to the flash head of 8200, and it makes it makes controlling your light a lot more easier. There are of course other options, like there are mag mod modifiers, which are like really expensive compared to these. Like for example, a mag mod grid and gels is probably uh, like 4 to 5 thousand. I'm not really sure. I've forgotten what it's like, but I know the basic kit of Magmod sells at around 8,000, and you get like a grid and probably a few gels. That's a really expensive option. According to me, it's really expensive, option just for like a magnetic modifier. So there are these a lot of these budget friendly, small modifiers that you can get with for your 8200 or for your flash. So these are some things you can all consider. I'll check out my YouTube channel later, and I'll link where you can get these and what's the price of it. I currently don't remember the exact name of these, but I'll link to that in the video. Apart from that, if you're using the bulb head, you can also use these sort of gels and the reflector, and you can use different modifiers for the bulb head as well. So this fits on the bulb head of 8200. So these are some of the inexpensive options that you can consider with 8200. And 8200 is really, really versatile. You can use it with soft boxes, you can use it with its own small soft box that fits onto the bulb head, or you can use it with any of these small modifiers, or if you're keen on investing more in mag mod, you can do that as well. So that's why one of my favorite flash is probably 8200, because it's really powerful. Plus, I can it of course it works only off camera. So I generally what I do is my on camera flash usually acts as a transmitter as well as a flash. So I keep switching between an on-camera flash and a transmitter. Like I just change the settings, and it switches between firing as an on-camera flash versus firing as a transmitter. So, and then it can talk to these 8200s, which we usually have on stands, and they can fire as off-camera flashes for us. So this is probably the most versatile flash that you can buy. Uh, and I know it's not very inexpensive, but I think for someone who's still on a budget, I think it's still great value for money, because of the sheer number of options that you get for modifiers. You and also this you can use two 8200s like I've done here. In case you have two 8200s, you can even make it into a 400-watt light by using two of them with, you can see I've attached two bulbs and connected two 8200s to this uh, ADB2 bracket that I have. So there are a lot of such options now. Instead of having a single 8200, now we have a sorry, instead of having two separate 8200 lights, we have like a 400-watt second single light. So in case you need more power, that is if you're shooting outdoors in bright sunlight and you require the need for more power, you can always combine two lights and use it as a single light. So one of the reasons I like this is because I do have the 8400 and 8600, but sometimes I may not be able to carry them everywhere, because it'll just add to the weight, especially if you're traveling uh, a long distance for the shoot. Then in that case, what I do is I take two 8200s anyways with me, and then I have this bracket. So in case I need a single more powerful light, I can always combine them and use it like that. So that is one of the biggest advantages of having the Godox system, because it is there are lots of such versatile options. So let's say, of course, pocket stroke is probably, for someone who's absolutely new into photography, maybe they wouldn't be totally up to investing in a pocket strobe. I know it costs around like 20 to 25,000. I'm not really sure of the exact price. uh, I know 8200 was selling at 20,000, and then 8200 Pro I think sells at around 25,000. So if you are still not very sure of getting a more powerful flash like this, what you could do is always invest in multiple small flashes like the V860 or the TD685, whatever is in your budget. Invest in multiple of them, because it's not always enough to just have one light. Sometimes you need to create multiple you need to set up lighting in multiple levels to create uh, layers in your image, and also uh, to give a certain depth to your image. And also, let's say you want to light your subject's hair separately, you would want to add a key light, you would want to add a fill light, you would want to light the background separately. So you would need multiple lights if you are serious about photography, and you would want to try out different 1 point, 2 point, 3 point lighting system. So in such cases, if you don't have the budget, if you're on a budget, then invest in like multiple speed lights and use different kinds of modifiers to achieve the kind of look that you want. But of course, if you're going to be shooting outdoors, then 8200 is a great option. Okay. So now coming to the modifiers part of it, let me show you one of my favorite, modifier that I came across in one of the stores. I wasn't aware that Godox makes something like this, but it's been a really handy little modifier. This is the SR1. This basically goes onto your flash, and it's really easy to mount it onto your flash. It can also mount onto your 8200. And once you put it on, you can use the magnetic modifiers that go with the V1 flash, the AKR1 flash modifiers. Let me show you those. So this is the AKR1 modifier. So this is the AKR1 modifier. It comes in a small box. Let me open it up. So you can see that, it's just a tiny box full of modifiers. So you have the grid, you have the barn door, you have the diffuser dome, you have the snoot. There are lots of gels there that come with it. So this AKR1 modifiers basically go onto your V1, but with the help of this SR1, you can even use this AKR1 modifiers on any of your other flashes as well, which is a really cool thing. So I don't have two V1s. Like I use V1, but Varun uses V862, and whenever he needs to modify light, he just puts on this SR1, and then he can connect all of the AKR1 modifiers onto it. This also can go on to the 8200, so you don't need to actually buy the uh, round head for 8200. You can always use this onto an 8200 as well. So this is a really cool thing that I found when I was like looking for something else, and I think it's something that a lot of people who are on a budget can definitely get a help with. Of course, there's you know just the flash on its own. V1 and the round head of 8200 is preferred, because the front element of the flash is a nice, it gives you a nice soft uh, even lighting. The light fall off is a lot better than the V860 or the rectangular flashes. But if you're using it with modifiers like this, it can definitely help improve the light fall off better than without the modifier. So if you're going to be using the modifier, then I think these sort of small hacks will definitely help a lot. Okay, all right. So let me go back to my slides. Yeah, and then let's talk a little bit about powered strobes. Being a wedding photographer, I don't really use powered strobes much, because especially in weddings, because we have to walk around a lot, and we don't like the idea of wires blocking people, or limiting us from moving the lights around. So I prefer to keep my lights portable in weddings, so that's why I prefer the 8200s and 8300 and things, battery operated strobes, which are a lot more portable. But of course, if you're going to be shooting in the studio, you can always consider the SK300 or the SK400. I've used these in the past for like some of the e-commerce shoots that we do. Like you can see on the slide, there is an e-commerce shot that we made a few months ago. So for such e-commerce shots, product shots, or even shots with models where you have to like shoot probably like 100 products a day or maybe 50 products a day, you would definitely want to invest in a powered strobe instead of battery operated strobe, because obviously lithium ion battery probably is limited to like 300 400 shots, whereas if you're shooting for e-commerce, you may end up taking a lot more shots, and you would want the whole thing to be consistent, and you don't want to be like constantly changing out batteries. So for such things, I think if you're shooting inside a studio, always, if you're going to be always in your studio, then I would definitely recommend powered strobes. Then you can fix it and keep it ready for your shoots, and ensure that you don't have to keep changing batteries. So if you're doing that, if you're looking at powered strobes, I think the SK300 is the really inexpensive. Even the SK400, from what I remember, is around like 9 to 10,000 for a light, which is really inexpensive for someone who's starting out. And it's 400 watts of light, so there is a lot of power in there too. Okay, so yeah, so let me take a few questions, probably, if there are any questions. Okay, so I'm just looking at some questions. Okay, Jaya Madhu is asking, can we get high resolution pictures when we're using continuous lights like LC500? For example, ISO 100, f11, shutter speed 1/200 in the setup. Of course, it depends on where you're shooting. If you have a lot of ambient light that you need to overpower, then you'll definitely need a flash. If you're instead going to be shooting if you're shooting indoors, and if there isn't if there isn't too much ambient light that you need to overpower, then LED lights will definitely work well. So, and of course, if you want to shoot at f11, if you need to shoot at high depth, probably for portraiture, or maybe even for like products where you need to show more details of the product, then I would suggest invest in a flash itself. LC500 is great when you are in a rush, when you want to like quickly set up your lights and have a go at your portraits. But I wouldn't recommend it for like product shoots, or for shoots where you would need f11. So if you want to be shooting at f11 and 1/200th of a second, I would definitely say use a flash. Okay, so looking at some more questions. So someone has asked, Godox V60 and A1, which is the best one? Let me tell you, both of these flashes are very identical, except that the V860 has a rectangular head, whereas the V1 has a round head. So instead of, if you don't have the budget, you don't need to invest in a V1. You can always get the V860 flash, and like I showed you, you can just buy the SR1 modifier, which is probably just like 500 rupees, which is not expensive, and you can use the AKR1 modifiers to make it into a round head. So that's an option. So otherwise, the recycle time is the same of both the flashes. The power is almost the same. V1 is probably just a little more powerful than V860, and I don't think it makes a lot of difference. So of course, V1 is amazing in terms of, the light fall off and the light spread, because it has a round head. The light fall off is more gradual and nicer than the Fresnel head of V860. But if you're going to be using a modifier on top, you won't notice the difference between the two. So if you're going to be using a softbox or an umbrella, or even the, if you're going to use the AKR1 modifiers on it, you won't really notice a lot of difference. So I would say, pick your, if you have a budget constraint, pick up the V860, pick up the SR1 and the AKR1 modifiers. So Mohammed is asking if we can have a question off the topic, like camera lighting. Today we are going to be talking mostly about camera lighting. I don't want to deviate from the topic, but if you have any questions other than that, you can always connect with me on Instagram, or you can drop by for our next few live sessions and ask your question there. So Devanshu is asking, do you recommend 8200 Pro for outdoor portraits? Yes, definitely. I do recommend the 8200 Pro. Although if you're going to be shooting in like broad daylight, like, afternoon sun, I would probably recommend the 8600 or the. I prefer to use the 8600 when I'm shooting in like broad daylight. But if you are on a budget, and if you are not going to be always shooting in like, broad daylight without any shade or without any cover, then I would say 8200 is definitely a great option. And if you need more power, and if you have two flashes, two 8200s, like I showed earlier, you can always use the ADB2 modifier and make it into a 400 watt second light. So I would, but otherwise, I would definitely recommend 8200 Pro for outdoor shoots. In fact, whenever we travel for pre-wedding shoots, I don't prefer to carry the 8600 with me, mainly because it makes the whole kit heavy, and especially when you're shooting on location, like for example, if you're shooting on a beach or if you're shooting in the mountains or whatever, when you have to walk around a lot with all your equipment, the lighter the equipment are, the better for you. So that's why I prefer the 8200, which will fit into my camera bag, and it's just a little bigger than a flash, and it makes it a lot easier to walk around with 8200 rather than with 8600. So 8600 is definitely one of my favorite lights, but I use it only during portrait shoots when I know I don't have to move around a lot, when the location is kind of fixed. So otherwise, like in pre-wedding shoots, when we are exploring locations, when we are scouting locations on the go, I would definitely prefer the 8200, and I use the 8200 in all outdoor shoots. So it's definitely a great product. So, Mr. Tirtha Roy, I don't think the equipment that I'm showing is very expensive. When you guys have the budget to spend on the camera and lenses, and I'm sure you can spend a little bit on flashes, I think lighting equipment is just as important as camera or lenses. And I don't think I've talked about any expensive flashes in this. I've always given options, if there is an expensive flash, I've always given a budget friendly option as well. So just to reiterate, because you asked, how much all these equipment cost, this probably costs around like 10 to 11,000. I don't know the exact figures. I'm not a dealer. I'm doing this session so that it can help people who are new into photography and who can learn lighting in a budget, instead of being worried about spending too much and not ever learning lighting. The whole intention is to encourage photographers to learn lighting, and to tell them that you don't always need like the most fanciest of equipment to make good images. So I talked about the budget friendly option, the TD685 or V860, which you can use for as speed lights, and the V860 costs around like 10 to 11,000. I know TD685 probably costs around like 7,000, and I know there's another flash, I think TD600, which costs around like 5,000. So you can have a look at these options and figure out what will work for you. Other than that, like I mentioned, even for the LED lights, the ring light is probably the cheapest, and if you're going to be mostly shooting portraits, I think ring light is uh, a good option to invest if you're new into lighting, and if you want to like try out lighting. Say if you want to light for your vlog or something, I think ring light, like I said earlier, starts from like 2,000 onwards. So a good ring light, like an 18-inch ring light, should cost you just like around 3,000 to 4,000 rupees. And like a small LED light like this will cost around uh, probably like 5 to 6K rupees. I'm not sure. Yeah. So other than that, the only probably the expensive equipment I talked about is 8,200. And again, I think for the value that it brings, 20,000 to 25,000 is a good deal of money that you can spend on. Uh, and apart from that, like I mentioned, use modifiers that are not very expensive. You can always upgrade your equipment at a later cost. I always tell upcoming photographers that don't go and invest all your money at once in equipment, be it cameras or lenses or lighting equipment. You should always upgrade your equipment slowly. Like when I started off with photography, I started with a very entry level basic DSLR, which I used for like 2 years. And then I upgraded to a full frame camera, and then I slowly started investing in lenses. So there are a lot of rental options as well. You can always rent out your equipment also. Just keep in mind that if you invest a lot of money into your equipment right at the beginning, you may kind of like burn out, because you may not be able to cover your expenses with the amount you earn from your photography. So it's always better for new photographers to invest wisely and invest slowly. So yeah, so apart from this, when it comes to modifiers, like I said, I know MagMod kits are expensive. If it is just for one flash, probably you can still buy it. But if you have to buy multiple flashes, then it becomes a little expensive. So AKR1 is definitely a very reliable as well as budget friendly option. So this AKR1 kit, so get that. And also it's a lot more portable than your MagMod modifier, so it just will take the space of a lens. And yeah, so other than that, one of the cheapest modifiers you can probably invest in is a reflector. Like this is the reflector that I have. It's a fairly large reflector. You can also get a smaller reflector, and you can also get invest in a white shoot through umbrella, or you can invest in umbrella modifiers, which are not as expensive as soft boxes and octa boxes, and these will probably set you back a few grand. But it is, any lighting equipment needs to be modified. I mean, the light from lighting equipment needs to be modified. You can't use the light from any flash directly onto your subject, because that will be really hard light, and that's not what you want. So Let me just share one more thing. So there will be situations like, for example, in this slide, you can see that I've used hard light in the images, and though I wanted to use hard light in these images because in the image on the right side, I wanted to use that shadow of the groom getting ready, and in the image on the left, I wanted to use the shadow of the window grill to create some patterns on the wall. So there are situations when you can work with hard light as well, so you need not modify the light from your flashes at that point. But having said that, if you want soft light, like if you want really soft light, like you can see in these images, like the image on the right, you can see even where the shadow falls on below her jawline, you can see the detail in the images, so you can clearly tell it's a soft light image. So if you want really soft light, then you need to modify your lights. So use I mean, like I said, there are a lot of budget friendly options for modifiers as well. uh, we'll be talking a little more in detail about that. Okay, I'll come back to that part. So talking about the modifiers, like I said, for the flashes, I generally use the AKR one to modify, or I can use a small softbox. Like if you're using a small source of light, like a V860 or a TD685, it's a small flash. So you need not buy like a huge modifier for that. It would be better if you use like an indirect umbrella softbox, or if you use a smaller modifier for that, like a smaller softbox. So instead, if you're using something like an 8600, you probably need a larger modifier because first of all, it's a larger light source. So, so whatever you're investing, just keep in mind that you need to set aside a small budget for your flashes, and ensure, if whatever your budget is, try and get multiple of those flashes so that you can use it in I mean, you can use for different part of lighting different part of your image. Like for example, to create depth, like how I've done here, uh, apart from the lights that is on me, there is also a light in the background which is lighting the plant and the backdrop, so that kind of creates a depth in the image instead of that going completely dark. So uh, this is how you would use multiple lights to set up. Like for example, here I have my key light, and I have a fill light, and I have a backlight. So that's how you need to light, even when you're lighting in your weddings, or in your when you're lighting your portraits, or whenever you're trying to shoot your product. That's how you need to light. So just keep in mind that at all times, just a single flash may not be enough. So initially, probably you can buy a single flash, then go on to upgrade another flash and another flash. So if you don't have a huge budget, try and pick up smaller flashes, but many of them. Try not to shoot with them in like broad daylight, because of course, like a small flash like this cannot overpower the sun. So it's essential that you know what are the limitations of your products, of the equipment that you're using, and you always find workarounds. All right, so let me look at some more questions. Okay, so Chandan is asking, where can you buy quick release plate for tripods? I think any of the camera equipment manufacturers will have the quick release plates. Check videolinks.com or futureforward.com. They'll definitely have it. And Kayur is asking about picture profile. I just leave the picture profile at standard, because if you're shooting raw, what picture profile you use does not really matter, because at the end of the day, what picture profile you choose as the starting point in Lightroom is what will make the difference. I generally leave it at standard because whatever you know changes that I want, I make it specifically in Lightroom. I don't want to change. I don't want the camera to add more sharpness or more vibrance or more saturation or make it flat or neutral. I don't want camera to do anything of that sort. I usually shoot in RAW and I shoot standard picture profile. So Parish is asking which light is good for photography, continuous or flash. Well, it depends. For if you're doing both photo and video, I would say continuous lighting is something that you should invest in. But if you're doing only photography, I would say learn flash. Because continuous lighting can help you to certain extent, but if you want to shoot with like very high depth, or if you want to shoot outdoors, continuous lighting may not be sufficient, so you would need more higher powered flashes. So I think it's better to learn flashes, but if you are in a hurry, having a portable continuous light like this can really help you when you're shooting. So Annabelle is asking, would you recommend products like MacMod silicon flash diffusers over standard soft boxes? uh, like I said, one second. Yeah, so like I said, MacMod modifiers are great because they are portable, but what I would recommend is the AKR1, which is smaller and more portable and less expensive less expensive than MacMods. But having said that, I would still prefer a softbox over an AKR1 if I have the time, and if I have if I have the option of setting up a softbox. That is not always the case when you're shooting a wedding. We always have to be on our toes, we always have to be really quick, and when something is going on, if you're busy setting up a softbox or if you are busy changing a modifier, it may not work for us. Sometimes we may want something that is like small, inconspicuous, that people don't notice it. Like, we can't use big umbrella softboxes everywhere, because that will kind of like ruin the decor sometimes, and it will also make it really bulky for us to carry around. So if I'm doing a portrait shoot, I'll probably, in my studio or outdoors, even if I'm doing a portrait shoot in a set location, I would probably use the soft boxes and octa boxes itself. But when I'm in a hurry, when I need to make pictures fast, when I need to think on my feet, and I can't spend too much time in changing modifiers or setting up lights and everything, the AKR1 or the MagMod modifiers will be a really fast setup for me. So all I need to do, even if I'm using MagMod, all I need to do is put that grip around, and then whatever the modifiers, I can just snap onto it. So if I need to change the modifier too, I can just remove that, put on the grid. So like I said, I do have the MagMod modifiers, but on a budget, consider AKR1 as well, because it's really inexpensive and it's pretty much similar kind of modifiers. Okay. So Paresh is asking, which is a good softbox for AD300 Pro? I use it with the ADS65S, which is the Godox mount modifier. The best part about AD300 is it has Godox mount and not really the Bowens mount. Why is that good? Is because Godox mount is a lot smaller than the Bowens mount, so it takes up less space in the bag, and especially when you're doing professional photography, when you have to carry so much of equipment, whatever space you can save in your camera bag will really help. So since AD300 as the uh, it has the Godox mount, the modifiers are smaller and it's easy to carry them around. So I use the AD-S65, but you can also just put on your S2 bracket on it. Just remove this thing at the bottom, and you can fit the AD300 onto your uh, onto your onto your S bracket, and then you can any bovens mount modifier onto your S bracket. So if you already have a lot of soft boxes, octoboxes, you can just use one of them on your 8300 with your S bracket. Okay. I'm just trying to see. So Chandan is asking, where do you buy the props for infant photography? You find a lot of them on Amazon, although that's probably the last place you would expect. I don't do a lot of infant photography, so but I have in the past sourced a few props for a few shoots on Amazon. You can definitely check that out. Okay, so someone is asking best syncing Godox trigger for Fuji X system. I think any of the Godox triggers, if you get it for your Fuji camera, like this is a XTN, which is X1TN, which is for Nikon cameras, but you'll get a similar X1TF for your Fuji. So any of the Godox triggers will work because all of the triggers are extremely reliable. I've never had an issue. Just ensure you get the one for your camera brand. So Nikon cameras will have a N next to the product name. Sony cameras will have an S. Fuji cameras similarly will have an F. Okay, so Ashwini is asking Godox AD400 Pro with X1N trigger reviews. I use both what you talked about. I use X1N trigger. I also use the 8400 one in a while. Like I have 8600, 8400. So I use it when I need to shoot outdoors and if I need more power. It's definitely a great buy. Again, 8400 also has a Godox mount in addition to a Bowens mount adapter. So you can also use the Godox mount soft boxes on 8400. So that's definitely an advantage. And it's definitely a good flash. It's not as big as 8600, not as heavy. So that's a plus. But I mean, if I have to pick out of this lineup, 200, 300, 400, 600, in the 8200 to 300, I'll probably pick 300 because of the Godox mount modifier and because a little more power than the 200 and it's almost the same size. If I mean, if I have the budget for it, of course. And in the 8400 to 600, again, if you have the budget, I would say pick 600. If you don't have the budget, 400 is also fine. 600 because it gives you a little more extra power when you're shooting outdoors. If you need something in mid range, you can always you should probably invest in like 200s, which will at least give you like 2 flashes for the price of one. And you can always use a bracket like this to connect two 8200s if necessary to get a 400-watt light. So Devanshu is asked, can 8200 Pro be used for food photography? Of course, it can be used for food photography. You just need to, again, think of the right kind of modifier for the food photography because you would want the light to be really soft. And again, for food photography as well, you would need multiple lights to bring out the depth. So consider picking the right modifier, something which makes the light really soft. Okay, I think we're almost running out of time. I'll answer a couple of questions and then we can wrap this session. So Millie is asking, can you give some tips on lighting for photographing children, especially if they are moving around? Okay, so if children are moving around really fast, you would need to shoot with, if you shoot with flash, it can definitely help you freeze your subjects. That is one of the biggest advantages of using a flash. So especially, even in weddings, when people are moving around, that's why everyone prefers to use a flash, so that the subject can be frozen. So even at say 1/200th of a second, with your flash with a flash, your subjects can be frozen using a right powered flash. But yeah, so as long as you're using flash, even if the children are moving, it shouldn't be a problem. But just ensure that if you're going to be shooting in burst mode, ensure that you don't shoot in full power. Like if you're using a flash and if you're shooting at like 1/1, then your recycle time will be like a lot longer. That is, it will be like, if you're using V860 or V1, it'll be recycle time will be about 1.5 seconds at full power. So if you're shooting at full power, every 1.5 seconds, the flash will take fire once, it will take 1.5 seconds to fire the next time. So in that 1.5 second break, you may miss a few moments, you may miss a few great expressions. So especially when you're shooting moving subjects, when you're shooting on a burst, ensure your flash is not firing at full power. I always try and avoid firing any flash at full power, because it's not good for the flash head. It is not good for the circuitry. If you keep firing a flash at full power, it can actually ruin the flash. So it's always better to fire not more than 1/16 or 1/32. Generally, that's how I shoot. So in case if you're shooting at full power, instead change your settings so that either use like a more powerful flash so that you can shoot a little lower power on the flash, or you change your shutter speed, aperture, ISO accordingly to accommodate a lower power of the flash. Okay, I think I've answered almost all the questions. Let me check again. Okay. Someone is asking about Godox product warranty. Uh, of course, all Godox products have a warranty of, I think, 2 years. I'll have to check. Yeah, so all the products are covered under warranty, and there are service stations which are run by Nikita distributors. I know the main service center is in Pune, but there are smaller service centers elsewhere, and you can always send the product to them, and they'll repair it or service it, whatever it is required. And if it's under warranty, they will ensure that the warranty is covered. All the Godox products do have a warranty, but just ensure that whatever products you buy has this hologram sticker. Sorry, yeah, has this hologram sticker. So this shows that it is authentic Godox product, because there are a lot of gray market products in the market as well, and there may be some non authorized Godox products in the market as well. So you need to ensure that when you buy the Godox products, that it has this hologram and it has a serial number on top of the hologram. So just ensure you do that, whatever equipment you're buying, and it will be covered under warranty. Yeah, Godox India just commented that for all the 80 series, they have 2 years warranty. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so Annabelle is asking, is there any rule of thumb when I have to manually set the power of the flash? When you're setting the power of the flash up, I would say first get your ambient exposure right. First, get your ambient exposure to what you want it to be, what you want the background to look like, and then adjust the power. Probably, if you're not very, if you're not well versed with flash, if you have not been using flash for a long time, I know it'll take a little while, but generally, when you have the experience, when you have practiced a lot, just by looking at the scene, you know what sort of power you need to set your flash at, depending on your ambient exposure, depending on how much ambient lighting is there. But if you're not sure, just start off with something like 1/32, and then you can either bring it down or take it up. If you are still not sure, there are always light meters that can help you. You can always just check the light meter and set the power accordingly. So Annabelle is asking, AKR1 is made specifically for the round head Godox flash. Any other cheaper alternative to MagMod for normal flashes? This is exactly what I just talked about. I'll just quickly mention it again. If you have a normal flash, that is, if you have a rectangular head flash, all you need is this ASR1, which is just an adapter that sits on your flash. Like this is a B860, a rectangular head flash. So, sorry. Yeah, all you need is to do this, and your AKR1 can now be used on your rectangular flash head as well. So this is definitely the cheapest alternative there is to MagMod, and I think something that is probably really underrated because a lot of photographers don't know about the AKR1 kit. Okay, so Devanshu, okay, one last question. So Devanshu is asking how to convert hard light to soft ones, especially for portraits. All you need is the right kind of modifier. You need a soft box or an octobox, or depending on how soft the light you want it to be. Different soft boxes and octoboxes, uh, depending on the shape and size, they give they convert the light to different levels of softness. So if you need really soft light, you need a big source of light. So the larger the source of light, softer the light would be, and the closer the light is to your subject, softer the light it would be. So ensure you use a big modifier in order to make it more softer, and ensure you keep the modifier as close to your subject as physically possible in your shot, so that the light is softer. If you move the same modifier really far off, it will make the light a lot harder. So there are only two rules to soft light. For soft light, the light source has to be large and the light source has to be close to your subject. So yeah, that should answer your question. All right, so I think I've answered all the questions, and we've already run out of time, but this was a great session. I will keep this video on my YouTube channel as well, and you can come back and watch on the YouTube channel. I'll also link in the description various equipment that I talked about. Ensure you come back and watch it whenever you need clarification, and also do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Search for Neeta Shankar Photography. It's youtube.com/Neeta Shankar, and also you can follow me on Instagram at Neeta Shankar. And if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch over there. Thank you so much for the session. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much for joining this, and looking forward to a lot more sessions with Godox.